Hello again. So, now we're going to talk a bit about the religion in the wood. Page 54 and 55. Then we'll skip out the full descriptions and talk about pages 68, 69 and 70. And I'll tell you the tales of the Amaranthine. So, in the beginning, there was only the sound of wings. Faint at first, the distant beats were easy to miss, but as time passed they grew stronger, faster, until they could be heard across the great unending dark. Then, with a single flap, creation burst forth. Fire, ice, air, water, soil, and sky. All came from the sound of feathers that resonated throughout the cosmos. This is the great rhythm, and by the great rhythm are all things moved. The rhythm tells the sun when to set and the moon when to rise. The rhythm tells the seeds when to flower, the trees when to shed their leaves, and the snows when to fall. The essence of everything there is comes from the great rhythm. One day, the rhythm may cue the end of creation, but there will be no end to the rhythm itself. As every downbeat has an upbeat to follow it, so too the cycles of nature eventually start again. For even though the rhythm can be faint at times, it is everlasting and eternal. Every denizen of the forest, from large to small, from predator to prey, knows the great rhythm, the beating force that is the pulse of life itself. To the bird folk, the rhythm began with the sound of beating wings, but other folk of the wood tell that it began with the thundering of hooves, the padding of paws, or with a tiny heartbeat. Birdfolk believe that two great spirits emerged from the rhythm. They were the first Amaranthine, Ardea, whose wings usher in the dawn, and Titan, whose wings are the shadow of night. They are the avatars of life and death, and keepers of the rhythm. So, the Amaranthine. Just as we need a heart to make our pulse pound, so too does the rhythm require a drummer. The heart of the rhythm lies within the Amaranthine. They are the immortals who have been given new life by the rhythm and act as its guardians, maintaining the balance of nature. What is this? The Amaranthine are the gods of Everdeen. They are entrusted with maintaining the cosmic balance known as the Great Rhythm. Unlike gods in other settings, the Amaranthine rarely squabble with one another, for any strife between the Amaranthine is a threat to the balance of nature itself. The Amaranthine tends to keep to themselves and rarely meddle in each other's affairs. Though each Amaranthine is a powerful being in their own right, holding a great degree of autonomy over their dominion, each understands that they are but a small part of a greater whole. Like the themes of a concerto, the Amaranthine are harmonies that create the great rhythm. There is some variation in the birdfolk and humblefolk Amaranthine. The Amaranthine are venerated by all races of Humblewood, although birdfolk and humblefolk worship them differently. The five whose origins are described in the Tales of Amaranthine, that's Altus, Caloran, Gesmi, Rhea, and Tenera, are primarily worshipped by birdfolk, and they, along with Ardea and Titan, form the most common pantheon worshipped across the wood. Think of them kind of like the new gods. While humble folk still recognise the birdfolk pantheon, most worship Amaranthine specific to their culture and heritage. Belief in these Amaranthine is not widespread, but their power is just as real. The birdfolk Amaranthine are less cohesive, with each having varied tales, origin myths, rather than a single origin story. Many fables are told of humble folk Amaranthine, such as the time Kren tricked Gesmi into dropping her flaming staff to flush game out of a bush, or when Henwin sheltered Gaspard from a great monster. To humble folk who live outside of birdfolk perches, Ardea and Titan are known as Dawn Mother and Night Father. They are depicted in forms that closely resemble the features of humble folk who worship them. In the perches, humble folk Amaranthine tend to be viewed as folk religion, alongside the primary birdfolk pantheon. Occasionally, perch-dwelling humble folk will have small shrines in their homes or in their shops dedicated to their amaranthine, usually for their race. So they're kind of like the small gods, the old gods. While these amaranthine go largely overlooked by most birdfolk, some who have taken the time to learn their legends pay homage to the fearless amaranthine. This bothers a few humble folk, but the priests of these amaranthine understand that each one is but a reflection of the great rhythm and welcome any birdfolk to learn from them. So, in alphabetical order, we have Altus the Enduring. They are the Strig amaranthine, domains of tempest and war. Their symbol, an ornate wooden chalice out of which pour storm clouds. Ardea, the Dawn Mother, covers all races, domains of life and light. Symbol is a radiant sun with 2 golden feathers. Next is Kyrith, the Resolute, the Servan amaranthine, life domain. A pair of white antlers is its symbol, wrapped in flowering vines. Kaluran, the Fickle, is arcana and trickery domain, and is the Luma amaranthine. Its symbol is 2 birds, one singing, the other crowing. Gaspard the Champion is the Gerbine amaranthine, community domain. 3 rapiers tied together by a pink ribbon. Gesme the Brilliant is the Corvum amaranthine. Knowledge, the Forger, its domains. A gnarled oak branch burning at one end is its symbol. Hanera, the Provider, the Gallus amaranthine, community and nature domains. A bird with plants for tail feathers is the symbol. Hath, the Whisperer, is the Mapach amaranthine, domain of night. A raccoon mask with a single star above it for the symbol. Rhea the Explorer is the Raptor amaranthine. Nature and Tempest domains, 4 arrows in a circle of ivy forming a compass for the symbol. Henwin the Kind is the Hedge amaranthine. Nature domain, a blooming yellow rose flecked with dew for a symbol. Kren the Sly is the Vulpin amaranthine. Its trickery domain, an eye wreathed in fangs for a symbol. And lastly, there's Titan, the Night Father, worshipped by all. Grave and night domains, a symbol of a wing containing 3 stars and a crescent moon. These are beautiful. You definitely need to have a look. So, story time. These are some tales of the amaranthine. The birdfolk have a myth that tells of the origins of the amaranthine and the 5 birdfolk races, while humble folk tell their own stories about how the wood and its people came to be. These tales are known throughout Humblewood and are generally believed to be true by all birdfolk. The tale of Ardea and Titan. With the birth of Ardea and Titan, the world was set into motion. Where once there was nothing but barrens, the land came alive with the coming of the amaranthine, and the world began its endless cycle of life and death. Their arrivals split the formless sky into day and into night. They created the sun and the moon, and the succession of light and dark which emerged from their movement across the heavens told all life when to act and when to rest. Ardea and Titan were born from opposite parts of the great rhythm. Each knows of the other's existence, but they keep to their separate spheres, meeting only in the early hours of dawn and the late hours of dusk to exchange dominion over the sky. In seasons of warmth, Ardea has a greater reign over the sky, while in seasons of bitter cold, Titan's power increases. The 2 amaranthine created much of life in the Humblewood. Ardea suffused the days with sun-loving flowers, plants, and animals, while Titan baptized the night with insects and animals that embrace the dark. They birthed sentient races, and from them originate all bird folk. The first of their children, followed shortly after by the humble folk. Originally, all bird folk were the same. It was difficult to distinguish them from the birds of the forest, as they even possessed the ability to fly. One day, the entire flock of bird folk decided on a grand contest of gift giving to prove which of them was most worthy to lead. Ardea agreed to act as judge. Whoever could present her with the greatest gift would become leaders among her children. For an entire season, birdfolk searched and scrounged, gathered and hunted, returning with trinkets, baubles, gifts, great and small. Though Ardea commended all her children for their gifts, only 5 were truly deserving of her boon: Gesme, Rhea, Henera, Altus, and Caluran. These 5 became leaders of the birdfolk. They inspired tales, devotion, and gave the birdfolk their distinct forms and skills. These great ones went on to become part of the great rhythm as keepers of nature's balance and protectors of birdfolk across Everden, eventually ascending and joining with the Amaranthine. The followers of each of the 5 were granted new forms and great gifts to match their leaders' exploits. Yet, to accept these gifts, something needed to be lost. This is why the birdfolk of today can only glide. Their gift of flight was taken as the price for becoming something new. Or so they say. The tale of Gesme, the brilliant. The first to present Ardea with a worthy gift was Gesme, a clever birdfolk who saw potential in the world that her kin could scarcely imagine. She had observed the great orb of fire that Ardea had placed high in the sky, and how Ardea had positioned it a great distance from the land and its creatures, so it would warm them gently without burning them. But Gesme also saw that the sun vanished with the coming of night, when the creatures of the dark became prowling, and thought, how remarkable would it be to have some of that fire in the world? Other birdfolk laughed at Gesme as she spent days plotting and reading the sky. She examined every tree, from the great ash to the supple willow. Each day she carried a new branch in her beak, dropping many in frustration. The birdfolk were puzzled, but dismissed their actions. Then, one day at dawn, when the sun was at its lowest point in the sky, Gesme appeared with an oak branch in her beak. Without a word, she took off straight into the horizon. She flew for what seemed like ages, but the oak branch was light and did not trouble her. As she neared the sun, her feathers, talons, and beak began to blacken with the heat. Still she persisted. The oak was hardy and spry and did not wither. Finally, she stuck the tip of the branch into the sun, igniting it. Hastily she flew back towards the ground, with the branch burning bright in her talons. The oak was patient and did not burn up, keeping the flame steady as Gesme returned from the sky. See what I've brought here, she bragged, as the astounded birdfolk looked upon her scorched feathers. This will keep us warm on the cold days of winter, and safe through the long nights. Ardea was at first concerned at the presence of fire in the world, for she knew the forests could burn, and that misuse of the fire would bring harm to Everden. But when she saw the birdfolk gather around the fires and felt the gentle warmth a small flame could provide to her children, she was overcome with happiness. This, she declared, is worthy of a boon, and thus was Gesme changed. Set ablaze with the flames of knowledge and creativity, she became an Amaranthine. The forms of her followers changed too, and they became the first Corvums. They were gifted with a bit of her cleverness and foresight, but Ardea gave them all black talons, feathers, and beaks as a reminder of the price Gesme paid to bring fire into the world. How do you like that? Would you like to hear the tale of Rhea, the explorer? If not, just go. The second to present a worthy gift was Rhea, whose hunting skills were second to none. Though she was small, she was nimble, swift, and wise in the ways of the forest. Rhea was capable and reliable, but birdfolk deemed her too independent to be a leader. She would travel the length and breadth of the land on her hunt, sometimes not returning for weeks at a time. During one of her journeys, Rhea encountered a stranger. The traveller's true form was hidden under a cloak, but they could fly and clearly felt as comfortable in the trees as any bird folk. They had heard of Rhea's skill in racing, hunting, and navigating the forest and proposed 3 challenges, to which Rhea agreed. For the first event, the pair moved to a patch of open sky overlooking rugged plains. There was a rocky outcropping in the distance. Whoever flew there first would be the winner. The race began, and Rhea immediately fell behind, the cloaked figure moving faster than Rhea had ever seen. Rhea summoned all her strength to keep up, beating her wings like never before, yet the traveller kept inching forward, and she was able to close the gap in time. Rhea steeled herself for the next challenge. They flew to the meadows, where small creatures grazed. It was decided that the first to catch 5 hares would be the winner. Rhea moved with purpose, confident no one could best her skills with a bow, a tool of her own creation. Each of her shots found its mark, until she had but a single hare left to catch. But when Rhea looked over at the traveller, she was shocked to see them waiting impatiently, with a full complement. For the third and final event, the pair flew to the centre of the forest. The first to emerge into open fields beyond would be the victor. These were forests Rhea knew well, and she was certain she would win. As soon as they had started, though, Rhea saw the traveller alight, darting through the trees as if weightless. Rhea kept pace, using every trick she could to help give her an advantage. Still the traveller pulled ahead, if only by inches, and emerged victorious. Rhea landed on a nearby perch and cursed her lack of skill. After a moment of pause, however, she regained her composure and thanked her competitor. Yet the traveller laughed, a sound so familiar. Rhea wondered why she hadn't noticed before. You have nothing to be ashamed of, birdfolk. I see your skills are real. You are the first to so nearly best me in every event. And this is no easy feat. The traveller removed their cloak, and Rhea could not believe her eyes. She had been challenged by the wind itself. It swirled, spinning a cloak out of the very clouds which it placed around Rhea. Consider this a gift, for providing me with such sport. Rhea thanked the wind, and with that it departed, caressing Rhea's feathers in a familiar breeze. When the time came to present a gift, Rhea offered Ardea her cloak of clouds, along with the story of her adventure. As Rhea told her tale, Ardea could see the eyes of the other birdfolk light up with excitement. When Rhea had finished, Ardea returned Rhea's cloak to her, saying the story of her adventure was the rarer gift. Rhea was changed and became the Amaranthine of wind, archery, and exploration. Those she inspired became the first raptors. They began to take on a nomadic lifestyle, finding their fortune day by day, as Rhea once did, and told tales of their own adventures by the light of the campfire. It's all linking in, it's all connected. The Tale of Hynera, the Provider. The third to present a precious gift was Hynera, a gentle bird folk, and the first to shift her focus away from the sky. Rather than live in the trees with other birdfolk, Hynera made a home for herself below the canopy. She cared for the soil and the earth, and in return the earth gifted her with wisdom. From the earth, Hynera looked to speak with the plants, knowledge she used to better care for them. She soon earned fame among the birdfolk as one who grew the largest and best-tasting crops. These crops, Hynera thought, are the finest gift I could offer to our mother. And so she set about planting a large garden, its bounty reserved for Ardea. One day, while tending to her garden, Hynera saw a family of haggard travellers making their way out of the woods. When they saw Hynera, the mother begged her for aid. "Please, kind sister, we are in great need. We were travelling through the forest when a creature attacked me and wounded my wing. We escaped, but I cannot fly. Please help us. We are terribly hungry." Hynera knew that she couldn't feed herself and this family while storing crops for Ardea. Even still, she could not turn them away in their desperate state. She offered to share her home and her feed for as long as the travellers needed, making sure their needs were met before saving any food for Ardea. The travellers stayed with Hynera for many nights, while the mother healed. Each day Hynera would prepare the family meals, telling the plants their plight. The plants understood and were honoured to nourish the weary and wounded birdfolk. In return, Hynera ensured their seeds were saved and planted again, so their lives would continue indefinitely. At night, Hynera applied medicine to the mother's wounds made from the leaves of kindly herbs. By the end of the season, the mother had healed. The family was in good health, and they gratefully flew away. When the day finally came for birdfolk to present their gifts, all Hynera could offer Ardea was a few fruits and vegetables. She wove them together along with flowers she had grown, attempting to make her offering look more cheerful. "I'm sorry, Mother Stork," Hynera said. "I had meant to present you with a great harvest, but this is all I could provide." Ardea took the rue and smoked gladly. "You have given me more than enough, for you see, my child, I received your compassion for an entire season." As Ardea spoke, celestial messengers appeared by her side, and together they transformed into the birdfolk family Hynera had so tenderly cared for. For her charity, Hynera received the Amaranthine's boon. Her feathers turned green and grew into vines and shoots adorned with the most beautiful flowers. Other birdfolk stared in awe, and those who followed Hynera became the first Gallus, blessed with her inspiring kindness, as well as her closeness with the earth and all growing things. All out of Emto. Next we have the tale of Altus the Enduring. The fourth to present a commendable gift to Altus, whose hunting skills were second only to Rhea's, though Altus journeyed the wood to test his limits rather than explore, as Rhea did. Altus felt pure joy when overcoming obstacles. He loved the cold seasons and challenged himself by hunting at night. His nocturnal existence granted Altus a perspective other birdfolk lacked. What if I gifted Ardea something she had never seen before, he thought. Yes, I shall hunt the moon and present it to her, so that she may see its lovely glow. This would be unthinkable to any other birdfolk, but Altus was resolute, given confidence his gift would please Ardea. However, he was neither as skilled or nimble as Rhea, nor as clever or cunning as Guessme. His arrows would not scratch the moon, and despite his great strength, he could not move it. But Altus was stubborn. For many nights he tried and failed to bring down his quarry. The more he tried, the more frustrated he became. Altus, even though he could hear the moon's laughter reflected in the babbling brooks and rippling ponds, mocking his futile efforts, still Altus remained determined. Titan, intrigued, observed Altus as he struggled. "Why do you persist in this task, my child?" the Amaranthine of Night asked. "You must know you will not succeed." Altus replied, "If I did not try, then I would never know for certain if I could. But you may be right. For all my strength, I can never best the moon, and only a fool refuses to acknowledge when he has been bested." Altus paused, letting out a sigh. Pity. It would have been a lovely gift for Ardea. Titan was touched, not just by the sentiment, but by the incredible will of this birdfolk. "Your resolve does you credit," Titan says. "To capture the moon, you will require this," he said, producing a lidded chalice, intricately carved from the wood of an alder tree. Titan gave it to Altus, and then the Amaranthine of Night disappeared. Altus was puzzled until the moon appeared from behind a cloud. He heard its laughter in the pond behind him. When he turned, he saw it, the moon's reflection, perfectly still in the water. Without delay, Altus filled the chalice with water, with the moon clearly reflected within the chalice. He quickly shut the lid. The moon was caught. As dawn began to break over the horizon, Titan appeared once again before Altus. "Let my sister gaze upon my creation, but return it by day's end. The night has need of it," Old Father Owl said, before departing for the lands beyond life. And so it was that Altus presented Ardea with the moon, who became the first Strig, and his people were gifted with great strength and indomitable will. He kept his oath to Titan, returning the moon that very evening. For this, Titan gifted all Strigs with the ability to see clearly under its light. Titan welcomed Altus as a guest in his home deep within the lands of death. Altus found the cold there bracing and decided to share it with the people of Aberdeen. This is why the weather is so inclement in winter. Altus returns each year carrying storms of sleet and snow in his chalice to test the birdfolk's endurance. Character building? Or just a dickhead? Lastly, we have the tale of Colurin, the Fickle. The last to present a worthy gift was Colurin, who seemed an odd choice for a leader. Colurin had no desire to lead. He was whimsical and impulsive, he had wild moods, and was never able to focus on one task for too long. He also had incredible luck. Most saw him as little more than a bumbler, someone who floated their way through life. In truth, Colurin was full of mirth and cunning. Where I am, he often remarked, is simple, where I am meant to be. I follow the flow of the universe. For all his mirth, Colurin was notoriously fickle. He was a trickster who delighted in humbling birdfolk who boasted about their cleverness. This earned him many admirers and just as many enemies. Colurin never intended to compete in the gift-giving contest. What should I care what others think of me? He harumphed, so long as I'm happy. Some birdfolk, bitter at having been fooled by him, claimed Colurin could never hope to win such a contest. Colurin tried to pay them no heed. In his heart, he felt the barbs hit their mark. Who am I kidding? Colurin sighed. I am not strong, nor smart, nor skilled, nor leaderly. I couldn't possibly produce a gift worthy of Ardea. With this last thought, he sank into a bitter melancholy. It was only when a young boy approached him that he regained his confidence. Please, Colurin, won't you show us what you can do? The small birdfolk said. Many of us love your tricks and your jokes. You bring joy to all birdfolk. Surely, if you can try, you can do it. Colurin saw the sincerity in the boy's eyes and suddenly knew what to do. Fine, fine, he exclaimed in mocking annoyance. I suppose I should entertain you. With the newfound confidence, he approached Ardea. All of the birdfolk were gathered, and when Colurin looked upon the crowd, he saw both enemies and friends. Thoughts of those friendships allowed Colurin to reach deep within himself, and from the depths of his soul he felt a beat like the great rhythm itself. Channeling this energy, Colurin opened his beak and brought forth a most beautiful gift, a song. It was a song so perfect, so harmonious that no birdfolk could deny its charm. Ardea beamed. My child, you have within you a rare gift. May all of your kin be blessed by it. With those words, Colurin became the first Luma, the Amaranthine of all fortune, good or ill. His peculiar connection to fate is shared by all his kin. Ever since Colurin's performance, all birds sing, hoping that they might imitate the perfect song he sang to Ardea. While some sing pleasantly, Colurin made it so that those who mocked him can only trill, shriek, or caw artlessly. This is why it is always important to show respect for others, no matter how odd they may seem. So those are the tales of Ardea and Titan, the tale of Gesme the Brilliant, the tale of Rhea the Explorer, the tale of Hynera the Provider, the tale of Altus the Enduring, the tale of Colurin the Fickle. I'll finish off with one from the Humblewood Amaranthine, a small Mapak prayer to Hath. O seeing stars, hear my words and part the veil of night. Give me thoughts of strategy, bless me with your sight. If this trial I do survive, with plans and actions shrewd, I pledge undying loyalty, for wisdom you imbued.